title of this lesson is Knowing When to Pivot. As a founder, one of your main roles is being adaptable. And sometimes that means knowing when to pivot. Pivoting is changing course. It means that you've come up with a thesis, you're working in a certain direction, and information, data, experience, and time has told you that that direction is no longer viable. It's no longer going to get you to the outcome that you're seeking. Sometimes that can be upsetting for people because we start this journey as a founder working on something that we really believe in and something that we know the world needs or think the world needs. And after time, seeing that maybe our thesis was wrong or maybe times have changed where it might have been for a different time this would have worked, either you're too late or you're too early, that can be upsetting to us. It can be emotional, it can be draining. But I have to tell you, it is not rare. Some people who have gone on to have great success have pivoted. And instead of being looked at as a failure or someone who has changed their mind and doesn't know what they're doing, they're looked at as a genius and someone who is self-aware, someone who cares enough about the company, the product, the service, the team, their investors, et cetera, their stakeholders, to say, this path is not working. We're going to tweak something here. So it may be a large, overwhelming, like it's a completely different company, or it could be, we're going to change markets, we're going to change course. You don't want to get too much into pivoting every 2 months. You don't want to do that, but you do want to adapt to new information. So a good example of someone who has pivoted in the past, and it turned out to pretty well for them, is a guy named Stuart Butterfield. He is the founder of Slack, which you may use as a founder. And Slack actually started as a game. It was a gaming company. He used the gaming company, he raised money for it. I think he raised millions of dollars for it. And I think they worked on it for about 2 years. And it was doing well, but it wasn't going so well that it was going to keep up with the need to keep raising money. So he put all of his team together. There were a lot of tears, there were a lot of layoffs. And he said, I don't think we can keep going the way we are in this direction. So some people will have to leave and some people will stay. And the people who stayed realized that they were using an internal communications tool to talk about the gaming product they were building. And that internal communications tool was one of the best tools they had used since email came along. So they decided one day, let's turn this thing we're using for ourselves into a product and see if we can sell it. They ended up putting thousands of people on a wait list as soon as people started learning about it and using it, and they had some beta users. And that turned into Slack, which is now worth tens of billions of dollars and hasn't slowed down. It was also acquired by a major corporation and is, has made Stuart a billionaire many times over, has made multiple millionaires from the team. And what if he had gone back and said, I'm going to be looked at as a failure if I don't continue making this video game company? Well, I tell you what would have happened. He would have run out of money. He would have had a video company, but it would have been a video game company, but it would have been dead in the water within a year. And he would have to start from scratch. This way, looking at it as this is a pivot, we'll take the resources we already have and slightly pivot to a different direction with the same momentum, it turned into something gold. That's not always going to happen, but I think taking that risk and feeling what's happening in your instincts and your gut is what makes you a true founder and a true leader. You're not always going to necessarily know when to pivot. A lot of it is gut instinct. A few things that come to mind that could be a sign that you may need to pivot. And again, this can be a slight pivot or it can be a complete restructure. Let's say that you're working on something, your product or your service is being used by people, And the thesis of why they would want to use it and the who your customer is seems to be on point. But they're not coming back to use this service or product over and over again. They're not telling their friends. They're not excited about it. It's not something that would just disappoint them if it didn't exist. You might decide there's not enough traction. There's not enough traction with this idea. Even though you love the idea, even though your friends love the idea, you're feeling out in market, it really doesn't stick. So you might say, we'll keep the same thesis, but let's see if there's a different angle. There's a different product. We'll keep the same market, but let's see if there's a different angle for it. Another thing might be that you have tried in vain for years to get something off of the ground, to get any sense of momentum. It could be that you need to go back and look at, is this something that was born in a time and an era that now it's outdated? Now something else has come along that has been a solvent, has been a solution to the problem that you originally wanted to solve? Are there competitors who are just too well funded, have too much of the market cornered, et cetera? Another thing you can look at is, are you being creative enough? Are you being as much of a moonshot thinker? Or are you simply moving the needle, moving the dial just ever so much? Because that could be why you don't have the right momentum or the right traction that you're looking for. So there's all types of reasons. There are many more, but it's a gut check. I recommend, if you're feeling off about something, I recommend taking a day, a week, a month, whatever it takes as a leader, taking that time away to think through it. And it could be that you just have a retreat of the mind. You could have an actual retreat with some executives, or you could just be with yourself and be honest with yourself and say, is this working out the way that I thought it would? And is that because it's not a great product? Is it because it's not the right audience? Is it because this, and that? And have that honest check-in with yourself. And remember that the same person, you, who started the company to begin with, can lead that company on the right track. One thing to keep in mind is that a pivot is not rare. I've invested in nearly 200 companies, and multiple companies have pivoted in one way or another over time. A good example in our portfolio is a company that started out as they were consultants to Fortune 500 companies. And what they were trying to do was convince these Fortune 500 companies that the companies needed to have more Black and brown people and more women on their boards and in the executive seats. And they consulted with them. They went into the companies, and they sort of, from the inside out, tried to change everything of that company. We might have had 10,000 or more employees that they were trying to change the system. And it took them years and years and years to realize, wait a second, we're working too hard for this. We shouldn't have to convince them of this. So what they did was they pivoted. Instead of that one-to-one, hand-to-hand combat, they developed a technology that was AI-based and data-driven that creates a score for these companies that tells these companies, this is how poorly you're doing in the grand scheme of things. And you know, a Fortune 500 company is very competitive. So when they were able to look at this score, instead of the company chasing them and saying, can we come in and save you and make you better, the company was able to look at the score and say, we're not doing well, can you please help us? Can you give us more technology and more insights into how we do better? And so they sell that score. They sell scores, they sell reports for far more than they would make doing one-on-one hand-to-hand combat. And if they had been stuck on, well, we started this way, this is what we are, this is who we are, they would have never thought, well, let's turn this into software. So they can make money while they sleep, they can change more minds, and they can do it with data. So in conclusion, be adaptable, know that change is welcome, and be smart about it.